We are about to embark on an immersive journey through the corridors of our minds. Stand by as we prepare for departure.
Welcome aboard, everyone, to the Productivity with Peace of Mind podcast adventure. Our journey will begin in just a moment. Inhale deeply and exhale. Our voyage takes us on a captivating tour, diving deep into the intricate layers of our thoughts and imagination. Brace yourselves for the complexities of our evolution. For a safe and enjoyable journey, stay seated, secure your helmet and protective goggles, and keep hands, feet, and legs inside while the ride is moving. Now relax and enjoy.
Today we have with us Josh Martinez, who is working in real estate. And today we're talking about really how the foundation of our lives comes first before buying a house or actually stepping into the real estate world. There's actually so much more to think about and pay attention to before we do that, and so what that looks like as far as like building our lives and our future. So welcome, Josh. I'm so glad that you're here and you're with us today.
Thanks, Lindsay. I'm really happy to be here with you and just kind of talk about some different things to think about, whether you ever want to buy a home or never want to buy a home.
Yeah, it's such a, I feel like hot topic and right now, and it can feel so complex too around like should I not? Is it the right time? Is it the wrong, right? There's all of that, but then it's like, you know, why is it important, do you think, to, build that foundation of our life before we start building a foundation of an actual house?
Yeah, of course. So, I think we're all brought up with that mentality. Like, you grow up, you graduate high school, you go to college, you get married, you buy a home, you have kids, right? Whether that's part of your social norm or whatever, but on TV, especially in the media, it's kind of like the roadmap to life. And my background, I was in the medical fields for 20 years. Now I'm a lender, so I help people get the loans for the home and work with the agents, as they're shopping. But having that background in the medical field, I feel really helps me help people, do things with their lifestyle. We normally don't, or I think it's more like we think it's so easy, and it's really not. And so, I didn't buy my first house until I was 38, and I didn't know anything. And I really put a lot of the trust in my partner at that time. And we had a friend who was a lender, and she'd been doing it forever, and she walked us through it. And I realized, oh my God, this is a lot more complex than people make it seem on TV.
Yeah.
And and I honestly didn't even think I would ever be a homeowner, and I'm glad that I am now. But I really just like helping people get to that point, so that way they, number one, know what it really looks like, understand, is this something that you even want to do, especially in this time frame, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
Houses are expensive, interest rates are expensive, and so mortgage payments are not, they're not tiny anymore like they were 3 or 4 years ago. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and yeah, like you said, there's just so much more that goes into it, right? It's like all of the steps, the financial piece, like what does that actually look like for me? And is it something I can feasibly do? Like, is it actually reasonable for me and where I'm at, whoever's considering that? Or do I even want to do that, right? Like I know for me, the biggest question has always been, well, I keep moving states. Like that's a it's hard to settle down when you don't know where you want to live.
And I feel you. So when I was younger, again, the benefits of being in the medical field, I lived in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, all of these bigger cities. And I was just like you, like, why would I buy? Do I wish back then that maybe I was buying someplace and having
Yeah.
these dope goals? Yeah, but I mean, shoulda, coulda, woulda. But I think it is. I think that's the biggest thing that everybody should start with is do I actually want to own, and what are the reasons of why we want to own? Because if it's just the same, my parents had a house, or everybody feels like I should have a house, talk to somebody who actually owns a house, or talk to a lender like myself or a real estate agent who really isn't going to just be chasing the dollar and trying to get that commission to get you into the home. Um, you know, I'll put my website up here afterwards and I'll have my cell phone number. People can always call me and just ask. But, one of the things is the responsibilities that come with owning a home versus renting, having somebody to call when your smoke detector breaks or your pilot light is out, and somebody just shows up and they fix it for you. So having the know-how and the want of that responsibility of maintaining a home, if you have a yard, maintaining all of that, and really treating it not only as your place that you lay your head, but also as an investment. Because if you buy a home and you don't take care of it and you have to sell that home later, it's going to be a lot harder. And I do run into this a lot where um, somebody's selling their house and the furnace hasn't been updated, or the roof hasn't been taken care of, or there's a water situation that, because a lot of people will be like, I'll just get to it later, I'll just get to it later, right? When you do something, well, it can impact it down the road, and then you end up paying a lot more to get it done so somebody can buy your house. So having the knowledge and the want of those responsibilities is really the number one thing I tell everybody. Is this something you want to take care of? Is it something that you have to understand the property taxes that come involved, homeowners insurance, that is a necessity. You can't, so you're not supposed to let the insurance lapse on your car, but if you do, I mean, hopefully you just don't get into a car accident. But if you let your insurance lapse on your home, and it comes back to bite you in the butt, you can be in trouble and lose your home. So there's a lot of the understandings that people need to think about, and talking to a professional who can help guide them to that decision, whether it be, I don't think I want to do this. I think I would rather rent and have somebody else take care of all of that for me. Or, I really want my home. I can handle all of that. Now, what are the next steps? And I think, if you decide that you're a renter for your life, there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's a stigma that people feel like they have to buy a home, like I said earlier. And honestly, we don't. Nobody has to buy a home. There are plenty of people who are buying homes out there. I mean, there's so many homes that are not available to buy. So obviously, people are renting. There's more and more rentals being built every single day, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's kind of like the same stigma as people not having kids, or
Mm.
not getting married and stuff like that. So I think a lot of those
Wow.
views are going away, which is nice. But I think not own or being a renter should definitely not be a stigma that people feel that they have a letter on them saying, oh, I'm a renter for life. But if you do decide that you want to buy, then the next step would be, what do you qualify for?
Mm.
And there's a big confusion on what am I qualified for versus what am I comfortable paying. And so I love cars. I'm a big
Okay.
car person. So I always equate everything to, just because you qualified for an Audi, does that mean that you want an Audi monthly payment, right? So if you qualify for $1 million home or $1 million loan, then what does that look like on paper? So when you're looking at your monthly mortgage payment, you have your principal, you have your interest, you have property taxes, you have homeowners insurance, and sometimes if you live in a development that requires it, you might have an HOA. So just a ballpark, I had a loan close yesterday. It was a $400,000 loan for a $450,000 townhome. Had a small HOA on it. It's in the DTC area, so not super, expensive city.
Hmm.
Her monthly payment is $3,500 a month. Do you think that that is high, normal, or low?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, it seems pretty high, but I don't know for
Right.
that amount. Is
Yeah.
that average?
But see, and that's what I wanted to get to, is where does that feel good for you?
Yeah.
So rent, I know that some rentals are very expensive. I know
Hmm.
some rentals that are not very expensive. When I was 25, I had a great apartment in Baker for $650 a month. And 2011, when rent started increasing, they tried to make me pay, I don't know, $1,500 a month. At that point in my life, that was a lot of money for a one-bedroom apartment. A $1,500 mortgage, which is what I have on my townhome in Parker, is low because
Mhm.
we were really smart and refinanced and got a 3% interest rate. Well,
Right.
those rates do not exist anymore. So the situation that I just told you for my closing yesterday, they have a 6.5% interest rate, which is an average right now for down payment assistance, which is what I specialize in, first time home buyer interest rate. My opinion, $3,500 is a lot of money for a mortgage payment for a townhome,
Yeah.
but that is the average for that type of price. Now, she is a first time home buyer. She has a small family. So this works out for her. It's getting her out of rent, which kept increasing and increasing and increasing.
Mm.
So
Okay.
she was happy. She wasn't ecstatic about that
Yeah.
cost. But she knows that again, it's an investment. It's an investment for her, it's an investment for her family. And now she can start, if her daughter wants to paint the wall, she can. They have a yard for their dog. So these are the
Oh.
reasons that she wanted to, get a home of her own. Now, a lot of people would think that's low if they want a $800,000 loan for $1 million home. You basically double that. So
Yeah.
$7,000 for a $1 million home with very little down is expensive. So one of the things that you need to think about when you're talking to your lender is how much do I have to bring to get the lowest monthly payment? So
Mm.
my
Like for
expertise,
down payment?
yep.
Yeah.
So you have down payment and then you have closing costs because everything costs money. Costs me money to do my job. And so we charge you with our closing costs. My
Mhm.
company does. That's how they pay me. So every lender out there will charge you a fee um, that the company, and they're called closing costs. And there's like a underwriting fee and a processing fee and a bunch of little fees. Well, that all gets paid on the day that you close. And then you also have prepaids. So when you buy a house, and this has always been the most confusing thing for me to understand, but we take your home insurance, we prepay it for a year, and then you pay every month into an account that will then repay it the following year. So you're never behind in your insurance.
Oh, cool.
Yep. So we call it an escrow. You do the same thing with property taxes. So we collect 8 months before and we put it into an escrow or it gets paid. And then every month you pay into the escrow, which then it pays your property taxes when they're due. So you're always prepaid for the year, but property taxes increase, homeowners insurances policies increase. So if that tends to increase, then again, we will pay it. And then you might have like a remainder that's due that they kind of add into your next year for when you pay your monthlies. So while technically your principal and interest will never go up unless you modify the loan, those are the only two variables, and HOAs can increase too. So I usually tell people,
Mhm.
yeah, it sucks. Rent goes up, right? Sometimes every year. They always
Yep.
try and blame us. So while technically your mortgage can go up, it's not because your housing payment is going up. It's all of the other factors.
Sure.
Um,
Okay.
so yep, so you have to prepay those, and then you have your down payment. So if you're looking at your bank account and you have $100,000, do you want to dump $100,000 into your home for a $3,200 payment instead of a $3,500? Or do you want to keep more of it for a rainy day fund should your water heater explode or something like that? So that again is something that I like to talk to people about. How much do you have to bring and how much of it do you actually want to use? So if you're willing to put in $75,000 for closing costs or for down payment, it'd probably be about $10,000 to $15,000 for closing costs and prepaids. That is now eating up a lot of your savings account.
Mhm.
Um, so again, it's not only how much do I want to afford a month, how much am I willing to put into it on the front end? And then the last part that I like to talk to people about is, again, if this is your first house, do you even have a down payment? Do you have these monies secured? If you're in your early 20s, you might not have $100,000 saved. I know I didn't, and I still don't. But then we can talk about down payment assistance programs. Um, Colorado has some really great ones. They have some of the best in the entire country. And so there are some based on county, some based on state, some based on city. And then my company Guild has some of their own that are on a national level. So again, so that's the next conversation is now that I'm ready, how much is it going to cost for me to get into this house? And how much is it going to cost me to get my monthly payment, which is impacted by that interest rate. So some people, sometimes you can buy down the interest rate if that's something that, you have monies for. But again, first time home buyers usually have a lot smaller funds to be utilizing. And plus a lot of the down payment assistance programs don't offer buy downs. So that's just kind of a conversation for another time if we ever want to chat again. But knowing how much it's going to cost is the biggest concern that you should have when you are talking about if you're ready to, pull the trigger and buy a house.
Yeah, I think that's one of the coolest things that, you had shared with me was like, yeah, if you're, there are different scenarios and depending on where you're at, there's different options that you can look into, like, the first time, home buyer assistance and like, things like that. Or if you do have that down payment ready, then use that to leverage your payment, right? So there's like, it's it's nuanced, but I think that that's a good thing because there's a lot of options depending on, where you're at and where you actually want to go.
Exactly. So I think, my favorite thing to do with my job is play detective. And so really finding what program works best for you. So, if you decide I'm tired of renting and now I want to buy, we just have a conversation and I find out your wants and your needs and how much money you're willing. And then we find out the best situation for you. And then, having the monies and then utilizing them the correct way is a great strategy for a good lender to do on your behalf. That's what you're paying us for, to get you into the best loan. Hopefully, anybody who's watching this gets the best lender. A good lender will do the detective work for you. However,
Mm,
it's like every field out there, there's bad doctors, there's bad attorneys, there's bad lenders, and some of them do take advantage. And, so having if you have that gut feeling that you're not being taken care of in the best way with your lender, find another lender. There's nothing holding you to that person. Same thing with real estate agents. I think they make you sign a contract, but I think people need to know that you are paying us to do a service, and if we're not doing it well for you, go find somebody who's going to do it better for you. But so my favorite part is just doing that detective work. And sometimes it'll take me a day, sometimes it'll take a week, depending on the complexity of that person's situation. But it's fun for me. I like that part. The other part, that we should have a serious conversation about too, though, is whether or not you have the monies. We do a big part on credit. So that's another thing that I work with a lot of people is if you don't have the best credit to start with, do you need to be in a home right away, or do we have time to fix your credit? So I do a lot of what we call credit rescores.
mhm,
So a decent credit score is 620 because that's kind of what most of the down payment assistance programs want to see. I get some people who come in 619, 595, 602, whatever. So we do a credit rescore. That can usually be done in a week. We try to make it so that way it's cost effective. It's like paying down a couple of cards or maybe getting something out of collections if that's what's
mm,
hindering your
yeah.
credit. But we can usually get that done in about a week and then we can boom get you into your home if that is what's holding you back. So just another conversation that people should be having in their post high school, somewhat grown up time. I don't know
Mhm.
why we're allowed to do this right at 18, but you can buy a house right at 18. I would not recommend it. But anyways, so, really building that credit. And now there's so many great credit building tools for teenagers. I mean, even tweens can start getting credit utilizing tools. I think
Cool.
this would be a great conversation for parents to have with their kids. They don't teach it to us in school, which drives me insane. I wish they did a
Mhm.
credit class. But if your parents are good with credit, then they should be passing on that knowledge to their kids. If they're bad with credit, unfortunately, without knowing, they pass that on to their kids as well. And I'll be honest, my dad was horrible with credit, filed bankrupt like 3 times. And so I did not have the best credit growing up. I did not know. how to use credit correctly. And so I think having that conversation early, like teen years, is really good. Now you can even, if you do have good credit, you can add your kids to credit cards and start building their credit so that way at 18 they have like a 700. But
That's
it's
cool.
very hard. Yeah, there's a lot of great tools out there. But I think it's very, very easy to ruin a good credit score. And it's so hard to rebuild a good credit score. So having
Yeah.
that knowledge, again, talking with your lender, most lenders will help you with that. Some lenders are a little bougie and don't touch anybody with less than a 700 credit score. Those people can go eat a bag of rocks, in my opinion. But if you have a bad credit score, you think that you're in a scenario, feel free to call me and I will help you get into that next level or find a lender who will also do that for you. But so having those conversations again is, where is my credit? How is my credit being utilized? What am I doing? Going to a credit class is really good. I think they offer those, like financial institutions, CPAs, I think will often have these kind of classes online. But also, and well, I don't know if we can drop this into a chat or something, but there is a great organization in Colorado called CHAFA, CHFA, and they have a class, first-time homebuyers class. It's mandatory when people are using their programs, but it's also good just for people to look into, and learn more about credit. What is a house payment? How does that affect your credit? Stuff like that. So
That's really cool. Well, are there so like when we're looking for a vendor, whether it's, we're reaching out to you or someone's in a different area or anything, and they're, looking for their vendor, are there certain questions that you would recommend that we ask them or like things that we watch for, behaviors, wording, things like that?
yeah, I think number one, anybody who watches this, you can always call me and I can find you a lender wherever you are. Guild is licensed in 49 states except for New York, and that's just
Oh,
because
cool.
New York has some very crazy real estate lending laws that a lot of people don't like to get into. But I can find one for somebody in any state, any city. But when you're calling somebody, number one, check their reviews, just like we do with everybody else.
Mhm.
Make sure that they're valid, and you don't have to do like the highest best reviews. Not everybody gets a bad one every once in a while.
Yeah.
I am very blessed. I have a 5-star Google status at the moment. So I take pride in that. But, having that a little bit of knowledge just to make sure that they're a real person, especially in this new AI world, people are getting scammed a lot, but making sure that they're real, and then when you are talking to them, make sure that they're listening, number one, to your questions. There is no stupid question. I know people hear that a lot and, it's kind of generic sounding, but there really is no stupid question. This is the second or third biggest decision you're ever going to make after getting married and having kids. So making sure that you're asking every single question and they're listening. If you're feeling like they're not listening or they're pushing you into something or they're just maybe half-assing it, then find another lender. Go with your gut. I always tell everybody if something doesn't feel right, find another lender. One of the best questions would be is, do you work with first-time home buyers? Do you understand down payment assistance programs and do you utilize them? And if they say no, but you really need those, they should be able to offer you somebody who can, but really
Okay.
know they understand your situation. And if it's not first time homebuyer, if whether it be if you're buying an investment property, if you're buying a third home, whatever is specified to you, they need to understand your situation. And there are certain things that I don't understand, and I have no problem sending them to a different lender. One of them being I don't know VA benefits 100%. I will help a veteran. There's some great veteran programs out there, but if they get really complex, I'm going to send them to somebody who understands all of those laws and loans much better than me. If it's in, easy one, I have done a couple, but they're just sometimes they're very niche. So understanding that lender's niche, sometimes some lenders don't have a niche, they can help across the board. But like I said, mine is first-time home buyers and down payment assistance. So if somebody's needing those, their lender should understand those guidelines and policies like the back of their hand. The other thing that you really need to know is what they need to know is what happens to my loan when I'm done with you. So this is just a really quick there are two types of lenders out there, or there's a couple more than that, but the biggest ones are direct lenders like myself or brokers. And what happens with brokers is they take your information and then they send it out into the world and then they come back with the best loan for you. And then that loan is no longer part of them. So one of the things that I liked is my company, I process the application, I underwrite, well, my team underwrites it, and then we service it. So we take care of your loan. So I'm your lender for life. You call me, I'm always available until the day that I die or leave the business. And so I think that's a good question too, because if you don't have that person as your lender for life, then where is it going to go? Who am I going to call? Is it an 800 number? Is it a bot? Understanding for first time home buyers, I think having that one person is more advantageous when you have a 800 number and you don't know the right questions to ask and you kind of get lost in that on hold forever situation.
Yeah.
I think having that is also really good. Not saying one is better than the others. There's pros and cons to both. But I think that's really a good thing for first-time home buyers. And then who are you working with? Who is your team? Who is your company? Are they a reputable company or are they, do they have, like, as a lender, I can go work for a company and have great reviews because my clients like me, but then turn around and the servicer or the company that they work for is horrible. So also look at those reviews. What does
Okay.
your company do for us? How does your larger corporation impact my loan? Because at the end of the day, you're still a number to somebody, even though you're
Yeah.
not to me. And so
Right.
you that the company, the bigger company, is treating you like a person and not a number as well. And then the last part that I always like to know is, are you if you are really already working with a real estate agent, great. That's awesome. Make sure that they're in the loop about what's going on. You should always contact a lender first, even if you know who you're going to work with the real estate agent, because it's a
Okay.
waste of time for the agents to be taking you house shopping if you don't know what you're qualified for. But if you don't have a real estate agent, your lender should be able to provide you with a good one. I have a handful of amazing real estate agents, and each of them kind of have a different niche or a vibe. So I can make sure that, if you want to go shopping and you don't have an agent, I have one that I can put who you can trust just as much as me.
That's cool. I like the idea of like matching what's right for you versus like, oh, my friend's a real estate agent, I'll just go with them, right? And it's like, but are they really like right for you? Even just because, you went to college together or, you met at pickleball.
You're right, exactly. That's really good. There's a lot of pickleball networking events with real estate agents. But yeah, you're right. I mean, everybody should vibe with the person that they're working with, especially, in these times. Again, just correlate it to cars, but if you go into a Toyota dealership and you get that used car salesman vibe, you don't want to work with that person unless you're into that vibe, and more props to you if you are. But you want to feel comfortable and be able to be yourself when you're doing this. And it's a long process. You don't want to be uncomfortable for 2 months with somebody and, just say, we're not really vibing right off the bat. I think I'm going to go with somebody else. There is nothing wrong with saying that. Um, and most professional lenders and real estate agents understand. And I would just, say, hey, and I've actually had this happen before where, they're like, I didn't like, so I just don't really vibe with so and so. Can you send me to somebody else? Sure. No hard feelings. And that's totally fine. This is especially on the real estate side, they're taking you to open houses and you're sometimes being driven around in their car. And so if you don't feel comfortable with that person, why just nip it in the bud right away? Same thing with lenders. And so anyways, and then so I send them to somebody else. I'm like, oh, we vibe so much better, and we each other's kid, whatever. There's always something that's going to keep you with somebody, but being able to cut that tie right off the bat is very important, and people need to understand that you have the ability to choose who you're working with. So, and same thing, you might find somebody that you went to college with and be like, oh, you're a real estate agent now. Oh my God, I haven't seen you in forever. And, and you reconnect or something like that. But that also, that's a very important um, understated conversation, is being able to say no, even if you are in a contract.
Yeah.
And, it's not working. I would like to void our contract and go. And I think that's something too that's really happening now with all of this questionable stuff in the real estate world with the new NAR guidelines and everything. It's, if you, again, you're paying these, somebody's paying the buyer's agent, whether right now it's not the buyers, and that did not change. It's still the sellers, but they're getting paid at some point and they're getting paid a lot of money. So if they're not doing what they should be doing, or you're just uncomfortable with them, go have somebody else, because they're getting paid a lot more than people think. And so they should be doing a really damn good job. So
Yeah. I love how all of this, like, because the whole thing is it can be really like overwhelming. There's, especially if you're new to it, and there's so much information and there's so much to, like, think about and pay attention to. So I think like distilling that all down to like your relationship with your vendor and your real estate agent, I think like simplifies that whole thing. So it's like if you can find that, and then also the realness of what you're sharing. Like, yeah, they're also still making money. Like it's not like a friend doing you a favor, right? Like they're also in business. So they're also, benefiting, because I think there's also like that weird, like, I don't know, like reputation of the industry, right? Of like, oh, like it's just for that. But it's like, how do you find that balance? And I feel like you do that in that relationship. So you both benefit, right? Ideally, like everyone wins.
100%. Yeah. I think it's the same thing like getting your hair cut, right?
Yeah.
If you go to somebody just because they're your friend and they give you a horrible haircut, you're doing a disservice to your relationship. You're doing a disservice to your head. And you're just doing a disservice to your friend.
Yeah.
And by saying, hey, I know you cut hair, but I'm going to keep going to the person that I enjoy. No hard feelings. We're both mature adults. And if one of you is not a mature adult, then that can change. But it's the same thing in our world where, there are immature, unprofessional lenders and real estate agents who are like, well, I've already shown you 3 houses, or I've done X amount of work. Yeah, we are commission-based people. We know this. We got into the business. They tell you at the very beginning, you can't, you can't you can't persuade somebody, you can't make them like stay with you because you've done a little bit of work or something like that. Like
Yeah, yeah.
we have ethics, and you know whatever. It drives me a little bit insane. It is very similar to people who like, oh, I just got my salon license, you have to come with me so I can cut your hair. I don't have to do anything. You're my friend, but I want somebody who is good at what they do and who I know is going to get me into the best loan or the best home. And if it's not my best friend, or if it's not even because everybody knows an agent, everybody knows a lender. Oh, use the person that we went through, or cool, I will talk to them, but I'm
Yeah.
not committing myself to working with somebody just because they're your mom's best friend from high school who has 7 kids, whatever. Everybody's got a story. We all have one. But no, you should be
Yeah.
able to trust the person that you're with and stay with them because you want to, and not ever feel guilted into it.
Right. Well, and I like this idea of like really establishing that foundation with the people that you're going to trust through this journey that is a little bit more complex, but also starting early and then like planning ahead, like the same way we would plan for like a career change or a move across the country, or, a big goal that you have for yourself personally and professionally. Like this is the same, this has the same approach. It just, it just might feel a little bit more daunting.
Yeah, and it should feel daunting. If you're going into this and you're thinking that it's easy peasy, have the wrong visual gain here. It's just not, and it shouldn't be. And I think some people get really irritated sometimes too through the process. They're like, oh, it's so hard. Well, yeah, well, you're getting a quarter or half or $1 million loan. It's not a cakewalk. Um, and especially when you're shopping for houses and there's all these negotiations. So it's a hard month. It could be a hard 2 months. It could be a hard 6 months, depending on what's going on in the market or what your own personal story is. But if you're working with people like myself and other like really good lenders and real estate agents, it's going to be a lot easier. But if you're working with somebody who you're not comfortable asking the hard questions, you're not, vibing with, it's just going to make it so much harder. So why do that to yourself? I know not everybody's going to get married, but it's kind of thinking about like working with a wedding planner, right? So, and this is a really good just way to analyze it too. Lots of people plan their own weddings. Lots of people use a wedding planner. There's pros and cons to both because technically you don't have to use an agent um, for the real estate side. You always have to work with a lender. But some people do shop for themselves. And I think in this technological world too, people are doing a lot more of this by themselves. You can
Okay.
also sell your house by yourself without using an agent. You kind of just need a lawyer in your pocket and they do it for a lot cheaper. So people should understand that technically you don't need an agent. But they are going to do a lot of the hard work for you. They're going to be the ones negotiating on your behalf. They're the ones who are going to be writing the contracts. They're the ones who are going to be able to tell you, I know that house looks appealing, but it's been sitting on the market for 6 months because X, Y, and Z. So you are paying for their knowledge. But
Yeah.
you're paying a lot. So you should like the person. You should have what's
Yeah.
best. And then also because in a perfect world, you should have an agent for life. You should have a lender for life. So as things change, whether you sell, move, grow your family, want to turn into a real estate entrepreneur and just own a bunch of rentals, it's cool to be able to use the same person every time because they already know you. When you become my client, you know, you get emails from me, phone calls from me. I check in with everybody minimum once a year just to see how their loan is doing, seeing if there's any
Mm.
changes. Sad story, but last month I connected with somebody who I helped buy their house last year, and good thing I did because she needed help with some credit card stuff, so we were able to uh, get her a second mortgage to help pay off some of her credit cards. But we also found out that the Social Security office marked her as dead. So there was some issues that were already starting to come up that she wasn't aware of. But because I called her for my annual check-in and because she needed help, we found out that she had been marked as dead in the Social Security world. So we had to fix all of that before we could get her credit cards taken care of. So, little things can, be good just for getting a phone call from your lender. But if you have a good lender who's checking on you once a year, you might have somebody help you find out that you're not really dead.
Details.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, so that is a good thing about like having somebody that you trust and you work with because then you use them. And I have somebody who I helped my first year buy a house, and sure enough, his kid turned 23. He's like, I need my kid out of the house. I need you to help him with a loan. We were able to get him a loan for a cute little condo, and he's super happy, and his parents are a lot happier that he's no longer living in the house.
That's amazing. And that's what I'm talking about. The win, that's like a win-win-win.
Yeah, 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 yeah. My
Yeah.
mentor, she had 4 generations under her belt that she helped one family with. Grandpa,
Wow.
son, daughter, and then great grandkid. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, you have to be able to trust that person because if you are, then you have a good person in your pocket that can help you with these large, large purchases
Yeah.
in your life. Yeah,
Yeah. That itself is almost like a marriage because like you're committing to that partner for life of like, okay, like when I have, transitions and changes and or challenges, like you're who I'm going to. So that's really cool.
yeah, and those are questions that you should be asking as well. Is like how often do you call check in on your client? And,
Mm,
how do you help me down the road? And they're saying, I help you because financial stability changes all the time. So
yeah.
especially right now in this economic turmoil tornado that we're in right now, people are utilizing credit cards way more than they should be. And so they're getting buried in debt, but they have this tiny mortgage payment, all this
Mm,
equity. So then how do you use that equity to help get you out of this piles of debt or into more financial stability or understanding too what does happen after you own the house? What does equity mean? What does a second mortgage mean? What does a HELOC mean? And so all of these ways, we buy a house because it's an investment. We have all this equity all of a sudden, 10 years down the road. Well, if you trust your lender and they've been checking on you yearly, then it's like, what can I do with this? I was helping somebody last couple of months ago tap into that equity because they want to start paying for their kids' college. Yeah, you can do that. You have $300,000 just sitting in this house. Utilize it. Make your house work for you. That's what it's there for.
yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, like just like a thought partner to like help you understand what are your options.
Yeah.
Because we
Uh-huh.
wouldn't know otherwise.
Yeah, because I mean, we all can jump on the internet, right? We all can Google what is equity, but then I don't know about you, but I get rabbit holed very easily
Oh
when it
yeah.
comes to larger things that I don't understand. I mean, we all do WebMD, right? Um,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be nicer to just have a friend who's a doctor to call? I mean, I'm lucky, I do. I have a couple of friends who, and instead of instead of WebMD, it's, I call my friend, I'm like, oh, I think I have gout. No, you don't have gout. It's the same thing like with your lender or your real estate agent, and it's good just to check in every once in a while. And, one of the things that people can take advantage of with me is I send out lots of information monthly. I have, a couple of platforms that keep an eye on your house for me as well and tells you a little digest every month that says, hey, your house is worth X amount of money. Or if you wanted to Airbnb your house, this is what it could be. And are you looking at a time to refi? So it's kind of nice because my company allows me to keep in touch with you with technology, but then getting a phone call from me once a year is minimum. And then being able to text me, like, that's my cell number on my website. Go ahead, text me. I don't mind. And being
Yeah.
able to, instead of getting into that rabbit hole on Google, you can just text me and I can answer it pretty quickly. And if I don't know the answer, then I'll find somebody who does.
Right. That's amazing. Well, and even though it's like, okay, you can Google like you can Google a term. Like if you don't like some people know equity is, some people don't. And you can Google that. But like what if it's something that you don't know exists, right? You don't know what you don't know, so you can't Google what you haven't thought of yet.
100%. Yeah, and that's the great thing about technology. They're the monthly newsletters that I send
Yeah.
will do work. Like, I don't even know what a HELOC was. And then
Yeah.
you say, "Hey, your newsletter said something about a HELOC. What is that?" And then I can
Yeah.
be like, it's a way to tap into your equity. But again, technology is great, especially now with all of the new AI stuff, but it's not a person. And
Right.
I'm saying that, AI is the end of that personal relationship. Some people work better with not personable people, and that's totally fine too. But there was the story of last week where the guy used Chat GPT for a diet thing and almost died because it gave him the wrong information and he was taking a poison in his body. So just
Oh my
be
gosh.
yeah, Google it. It's kind of crazy. But just be careful with technology, be careful with the internet. There's a lot of bad information. There's a lot of people who are on TikTok and who are promoting lending stuff or agent stuff. And so, it's fine if you're getting a little bit of information from that, but then call a trusted person and really dig into it deeper because,
Yeah.
a 30-second TikTok can do a lot of damage when it's about something that, you don't know a lot about. And then
Yeah.
somebody not really giving you the most information about it anyway. So
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I love that. Yeah, like do your due diligence, like check with your trusted, resource. Well, and that just goes back to the importance of that foundation of that relationship that you're building with that person is because you can take, in the information age, you can take what you're hearing and seeing out there and come back and be like, does this apply to me? How does this apply to me? Like, does this matter? Should I worry about this? Should I not?
100%. Yeah, and it's, to go back to the hairstylist, like actually the longest relationship I ever had was with my barber. And she and I were together for like 22 years. But it's because I trusted her and I could walk in there and she would just be like, and same thing, like, oh, do you think I can pull off whatever the new step? No, you can't. We're gonna do what we're doing.
No.
And that's what you need, with your lender, your real estate
Yeah.
agent, is now a good time to buy is the biggest question that everybody's asking right now. And there's, it's not an easy answer because I think a lot of people, especially agents and lenders, are hurting right now because we're not doing as much business as we did 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And so everybody's, yes, it's a great time to buy. Let's get you into a loan. Figure out your situation first. And so I do constantly have people texting me saying, hey, is now a good time to refinance? Or is now a good time to buy? I don't know. And that's a perfectly good answer to get. I don't know. Let's look into it. Let's see what's
Yeah.
going on with dating. Let's see what's going on with your job. There's a lot of, stress right now. I have friends who work for the government who are scared that they're not going to have a job in 2 months. So now would
Yep.
probably be a good time for you to buy a home. So, having those conversations with somebody that you trust, and then at the end of the day say, okay, you know, somebody on TikTok said I should buy my house now because rates are rates will go down. No, I mean, that's fine if you want to believe that. But a lot of people said for 2 years, marry the house, date the rate. And they're still dating that rate because they have not gone down enough to refi or, um, lots of there's no magic 8 ball. None of us can say next year rates will go down. And I think people did say that for a year. And so a lot of people got into homes that they could barely afford. And maybe they're regretting it now because somebody told them for sure rates will go down next year. So I hated that tagline that people were using it. I from the first day said we shouldn't be saying that. But yeah, people are now married to a house and dating a really shitty rate that has not gone down. So for you, it might not be the best time to buy. For
Yeah.
another person, it might be a great time to buy. For the people that I am helping right now, there's reasons. So, the lady I told you I helped her get a second mortgage so that way her credit cards, she now all of her credit cards are paid off. I have another person, she's now living in a house with her family where if her daughter wants to paint the wall, she can. So, I don't know if it's a great time to buy. It could be for you, it could not be for you. But having that conversation is a great way to figure it out.
Yeah. I love that answer because it's like it's not hard. In fact, and I remember when I was living in Georgia. And it's funny because at the beginning of the episode, you talked about like, why are you buying? Is it because of something you like heard or you're supposed to do? So for me, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm turning 30. I need to own a house. I can't, this is embarrassing. I can't rent an apartment. Like, I got all in my head. But then when I was talking to the agents, they're like, yeah, you absolutely have to buy now. Like you have, and I was like, that felt so jarring to my nervous system that I got scared and I backed away because I was like, ooh, I don't know. I don't want to have to do anything. Like,
Right. And I think that again, it's just that people need to make money, right? And like you said earlier, this is our job, this is our livelihood.
yep.
So some people out there who are living check to check, commission to commission, they are putting people in that same nervous, like, oh, they're saying I should buy it. They're nervous because you're nervous, or
Yeah.
you're because they're nervous. And so
Yeah.
it's I mean, I'm very blessed. I'm not rich. I'm not like I don't have money, growing on trees in my apartment or anything like that. Because I just moved to Austin and from, 15 years in Colorado and my townhome and everything. So I get it. I'm renting right now. So why I can't go around and say, oh, everybody has to buy when I'm not. But, I'm not I'm never going to let my life be dictated by my job. If I have to hustle, like I'll go get a second job. I have a second job, but I'm not going to go put people into bad loans or tell people that they have to buy just because I need that commission check. But again, I have a different ethic base than a lot of other people out there. And some other people don't want to go get a second job or they don't want to get a third job. So I know real estate agents who are working 3 jobs. Why not a lender? So I'm
Yeah.
not going to put somebody into a bad situation just because maybe my financial commissions aren't coming in as much as they did.
Yeah. I think that's like the ultimate bottom line of like that relationship is like, will you put me in a hard situation or will you like do what's right for all of us, right? Like, or will you like help me really think about what the right call is? Like, is it waiting a year or two so I can clear up my credit versus like almost bullying me or pressuring me into doing something now when it's not the right time just to make that commission. But then also then that's not a win for even the lender or the real estate agent because then it's like, well, now I'm in a hard situation and like I can't even keep working with you because I can't do anything else.
Right. And then you're right, it's a lose-lose because then, yeah, the lender gets a commission, but you don't have a customer for life
Nope.
because they don't like you. They weren't happy with what you did. And so everybody that I have helped buy a house, I know that they will call me whenever that they want to ask another question or maybe buy a new house or anything like that. So
Yep.
yeah, granted, those people are getting that one commission, but by maybe saving somebody from buying or getting or making them happy and realizing it did take me a year, but I know that I'll get way more commissions either from them or their referrals. So that's the whole goal is we're referral based people. So
Oh yeah. That's the referrals are huge. Like yeah, if you're if you're like, man, they just put me in like a really hard place and I'm struggling, like I'm not gonna refer them to anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you started with what kind of conversations and why I should be talking to a lender. That's why. To figure out if, number one, if you really even should buy, if you should rent, how long should it take you? And then when you are ready to pull that trigger, then you have a relationship started that you know you'll feel comfortable in the long run in the loan or the home that you got into because of that relationship. So again, I'm just a little bit different than other lenders, but there's also a lot of lenders who are just like me who have that same foundation and want to do the detective work and want to get people into the best loan. So I think just making sure that you're finding the right people for your massive decision. It's just everybody needs a good support team. You just need different ones, whether it be a good hairstylist, car broker, insurance agent, or a good lender and real estate agent, because we're our own foundation for, again, the biggest purchase you'll probably ever make.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about you is like you're not just like it's not just that you're like genuine and real and you want the best for your client, but you also have a passion for serving those who, might just be getting started or don't know a lot about it. Like it's that population of that community, like I'm part of it, right? That's why we started talking and then now we're having this conversation is because like that group of people that's just like I don't know. And I don't know what I don't know. Like, where do I even start? And I'm overwhelmed and it's scary and it's confusing. And how do I know what I should be even be doing? Because people say, oh, you should be investing, like it's a good investment. But then you're like, yeah, but like, how do I get started?
And that's so funny, especially the generation before us, it was you have to buy it, it's an investment.
Yep.
And then I remember for the longest time, I'm like, what do you even mean it's an
Yeah.
investment? What? And so then and I didn't know a lot of this until I became a lender and then I bought two. I'm like, oh, because then now, yeah, you have this equity that you can tap into. Oh, I get it now. Okay. And so, yeah, it does take a while, but if people just constantly saying to you, bullying you, you should buy, well, you need to know why. And so that's what I'm here for. I'm here to tell you why, maybe tell you why not, and just really have an honest opinion about, home buying. So I know we've been going, so we'll probably start wrapping this up, but I'll wrap it up with, two different scenarios. One, I have a borrower and her husband who are finally able to shop. And they contacted me 3.5 years ago, and they had a lot of things on their credit that they needed to fix. We got them there and they patiently did everything that I told them to do. And they are now shopping for their home for their three little boys. Literally, two of them have been born since we had our first conversation. And, they're like, now we can get into a home, into a good loan for us and our kids. Luckily, they had that time because not a lot of people do, but I'm able to help them now and they will hopefully be closing on a home next month. The other part is I had a friend whose same thing, everybody constantly told her, you need to buy, you need to buy. She has a great rental. She pays like maybe $1,000 a month, which is anybody living in a weird town, that's low for Colorado, for Denver. And
Yeah.
she was like, but everybody keeps telling me that I need to buy. And so I was like, well, do you want a yard? No. Do you want, what happens if your furnace blows out? I need to call somebody. You don't want to buy. You are fine renting. You are a renter for life, and there is nothing wrong with that. And so, anybody who's watching this, if you don't want to buy, don't buy. You don't have to. Nobody has to buy anything. It's an investment, but it's a hard investment. It's not just buying a house and you're done, one and done, and that's it for the rest of your life. It's a lot of work. And, one of my favorite sayings is, all the good things and all the bad things, they're all a lot of work. Everything. It's hard to go to school. It's hard to not graduate, because of all of the outcomes. So it's hard renting and it's hard owning. So you have to figure out what hard is best for you and continue on that path. And if buying, you can do that hard, then do it. And if you can't, that's fine too. You don't have to. So I just want people to realize like, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to, then give me a call. We can talk about it and we can get your wants filled.
That is so amazing and so beautifully put. Thank you so much. And we will link all of your information below in the show notes. So if you guys want to, check them out, give them a call, build that, trusted partnership. Or if, it's not the right location or, style, then, finding the right one for you. So thank you, Josh. This has been such a gift, so helpful to just distill it down to what matters most, how to make it not so overwhelming. Like you said, it's still going to be daunting, but like not, it can be a little bit easier, like you said. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. It was such a pleasure meeting you, being able to reconnect. And yeah, if you ever want to do this again and, put out some different questions or highlights, or if anybody requests something, I'm more than happy to be available for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great one.
Thank you for braving the inside of your mind with me. The better we understand ourselves, the more deeply we understand the world, and as our awareness grows, life just gets better and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review and share this with anyone else you think could benefit from listening. A quick reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, and the discussions here are not a substitute for professional advice. If you're dealing with a specific issue or need personalized guidance, please consult with a qualified professional. Your well-being is important, and this podcast is simply a platform for sharing insights and experiences. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Until next time.